Lord have mercy. I remember sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, staring at my bank account on that old cracked phone screen, and the number staring back at me was $800. That was it. That was everything I had in this world at 62 years old. No pension, no savings, no plan, just $800 and a pile of bills that didn't care one bit about my feelings. I'll be darned if I didn't just sit there for 20 minutes, not moving, not blinking, just staring at that number like it was going to change if I looked at it long enough. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, and the only thought running through my head was how in the hell did I end up here? Stick with me, friend, because what happened next is something I reckon a whole lot of you need to hear. My name is Dale Hutchins, and I grew up in a small town outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Nothing fancy about me, I tell you what. I was a floor supervisor at a packaging plant for 31 years. Punched in at 6 in the morning, punched out at 3, came home smelling like machine oil and cheap coffee. My wife Linda and I raised 2 kids in a 3-bedroom house on Maple Creek Road. We had a dog named Biscuit, a truck that needed fixing every other month, and a little vegetable garden out back that Linda was prouder of than anything else on this earth. We weren't rich by any stretch, but we weren't hurting either. We were regular American folks, plain and simple. I coached Little League for 8 years. I knew my neighbors by name. I went to the same barber shop every 3 weeks for 20 years. I was the kind of man who paid his bills on time, shook hands when he made a promise, and believed that if you worked hard and kept your nose clean, things would work out. I reckon most of you reading this right now know exactly the kind of man I'm talking about because you either are that man, or you married one, or you raised one. And that right there is exactly why what happened to me could happen to anybody. I tell you what, there was a time when retirement felt like the most beautiful word in the English language. Linda and I used to sit out on the back porch on summer evenings, sipping sweet tea, and we'd talk about it like it was this golden door just waiting to be opened. We had it all planned out, friend. We were going to drive down to Florida every winter, rent a little place near the water, nothing too fancy. We talked about taking the grandkids fishing up at Norris Lake every summer, just like my daddy took me when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. I could already smell the sunscreen and the hot dogs on the grill. Linda wanted a bigger garden. She had this whole vision of tomatoes and sunflowers and spending her mornings with dirt on her hands and peace in her heart. I was going to finally fix up that old 1968 Ford pickup I'd been dragging around for years and actually drive the thing instead of just dreaming about it. We'd host Sunday dinners and watch the grandkids run around the backyard and just breathe easy for the first time in our lives. No alarm clocks, no quotas, no foreman looking over your shoulder. Just life, slow and sweet, the way it was supposed to be. You betcha we believed every single bit of it was coming. We had earned it. We had worked for it. And Lord, we wanted it so bad we could taste it. It was a Monday morning in March, and I remember it was cold and gray outside. The kind of day where the sky looks like dirty dishwater. I walked into that plant just like I had done for 31 years. Same parking spot, same coffee from the same machine, same nod to the same security guard at the door. And then my shift manager pulled me aside before I even got to the floor and said, "Dale, corporate needs to see you upstairs." I'll be darned if my stomach didn't drop straight to the floor right then and there. I walked into that little conference room, and there were 2 people I had never seen before in my life, sitting behind a table with a folder in front of them. They didn't even let me sit down good before they started talking about restructuring and workforce reduction and transitional packages. 31 years, friend. 31 years of my life in that building, and it was over in 11 minutes. I counted. I don't know why I counted, but I did. I walked out to my truck and just sat there in that parking lot for a long time. Didn't cry. Couldn't cry. It was like the news hadn't fully landed yet, like my brain was still buffering. But here's the part that really knocked the wind out of me. 3 weeks later, Linda went to the doctor for what we thought was just a routine checkup. It wasn't routine. She came home with a diagnosis that changed everything, and the medical bills that followed made that job loss feel like a minor inconvenience. Everything we had saved, everything we had set aside, started disappearing faster than either of us could believe. By the time fall rolled around that same year, Linda and I had burned through almost everything. The savings account we had been feeding for 20 years, gone. The small investment account my brother-in-law had talked me into back in 2004, cashed out just to keep the lights on. I had to sit down with my daughter one Sunday afternoon and tell her that her daddy didn't have it together the way she thought he did. I tell you what, that was one of the hardest conversations of my entire life. Harder than anything that happened in that conference room. Because a man can take a lot of hits from the outside world. But when you have to look your child in the eye and say, "I don't know what I'm gonna do," something inside you just breaks a little. I started waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning, just lying there in the dark with my heart pounding and my mind running 100 miles an hour. I'd stare at the ceiling and do math in my head over and over again. The same math that never added up no matter how many times I ran it. $800. That's what was left. $800 in a mortgage I couldn't pay, and a wife who needed medicine every single month without fail. I felt ashamed, friend. I felt like I'd failed at the one job that mattered most, which was taking care of my family. I stopped going to church because I didn't want to answer questions. I stopped returning phone calls. I ate less so Linda could eat right. I was 62 years old and I felt like I was standing at the edge of something dark with no rope and no ladder and no way back up. That right there was my rock bottom, and I pray to God you never have to feel what that feels like. It was a Wednesday night and I couldn't sleep again. Big surprise there. I was sitting in the kitchen in the dark with a cup of cold coffee and my old laptop, just scrolling through nothing, the way you do when your brain won't shut off and you don't even know what you're looking for. And I stumbled across this video of a fella about my age, sitting in a lawn chair in what looked like a real modest backyard, just talking plain and honest about how he had retired with almost nothing and figured it out anyway. No fancy graphics, no suit and tie. Just a regular man talking like he was sitting across the table from me. And something about it just stopped me cold. I watched the whole thing twice. Then I watched it a third time. It wasn't that he had some magic secret or a get-rich-quick scheme, shoot. I'd heard enough of those to last a lifetime. It was that he was real. He was scared just like me. He made mistakes just like me. And he was still standing. I reckon that was the first moment in months where I felt something other than fear. It was small, just a tiny little crack of light under a very heavy door, but it was there. I wrote down 3 things he mentioned on a paper napkin. Social Security timing, senior assistance programs, downsizing. 3 words on a napkin. That napkin sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I finally picked it up and decided that if that fella could find his way through, then by God, so could Dale Hutchins. The first thing I did was call the Social Security Administration, something I had been putting off because honestly, I was scared of what they'd tell me. Now here is something a lot of folks don't know, and I sure didn't know it at the time. If you claim Social Security at 62, you get a reduced benefit. But in my situation, with $800 in the bank and bills stacking up, waiting was not a luxury I had. I filed at 62 and that first check was $460 less than it would have been at 67. But it was money coming in every single month like clockwork, and right then that felt like a miracle. That check alone changed the feeling in our house overnight. The second thing I did was swallow my pride and call the county assistance office. Lord have mercy, was that hard for a man like me. I had worked my whole life and never asked anybody for a dime. But the woman on the phone was kind as could be, and she walked me through something called SNAP benefits and a low-income energy assistance program that cut our utility bills almost in half. I'll be darned if I hadn't been leaving money on the table for months just because I was too proud to pick up the phone. The third thing I did was sell the house. Now I know that sounds drastic, and it was. But Linda and I sat down together, and we looked at that mortgage payment, and we looked at what a smaller place would cost. And the math was clear as day. We found a little 2-bedroom rental about 40 miles outside of town. Quiet neighborhood, good people, half the cost. It hurt to leave Maple Creek Road, no 2 ways about it. But the day we handed over those keys, I felt something loosen up in my chest that had been tight for over a year. The fourth thing I did was find part-time work. Nothing glamorous. I started driving for a grocery delivery service 3 mornings a week, brought in about $600 a month, and kept me moving and kept me feeling useful, which matters more than people realize when you're a man who's worked his whole life. And the fifth thing, and I want you to hear this one clearly, I asked for help. From my kids, from my community, from my church when I finally went back. I reckon the biggest lie we tell ourselves at our age is that asking for help means we failed. It doesn't. It means we're still fighting. It's been 3 years since that Tuesday morning when I stared at $800 on a cracked phone screen. And I want to be straight with you because you deserve the truth and nothing but. I am not rich. I am not driving a new truck or wintering in Florida or any of the things Linda and I used to dream about on that back porch. But I am okay. And after everything we went through, okay feels like the most beautiful thing in the world. Linda is doing better. Her treatment is going well, and last spring she finally got her garden again. Just a small raised bed out front of our rental. But she's got her tomatoes and her sunflowers, and every morning I watch her out there with her coffee cup and her dirt-covered gloves, and I think to myself that right there is everything that matters. My Social Security comes in every month. My part-time driving keeps a little extra in my pocket and keeps me from going stir-crazy if I'm being honest. We eat simple meals and we don't waste a thing, and we sleep through the night now, both of us, which sounds small but shoot. After a year of 2 a.m. ceiling staring, sleeping through the night is pure luxury. My grandson came and stayed with us for 2 weeks this past summer, and we took him fishing up at the lake. Nothing fancy. Worms and bobbers and a cooler full of sandwiches. He caught his first base, and the look on that boy's face, I tell you what, no amount of money in any bank account buys that moment. I reckon that's what I would call a good life. Now I want to talk directly to you for just a minute. Not as a YouTube video. Not as some story you stumbled across on the internet. But as one real person to another. If you are sitting there right now, somewhere between 55 and 70 years old, and you are scared, I need you to hear this. Your fear is valid. Your situation is real. And you are not alone, not by a long shot. I spent almost a full year believing that I was the only one who had fallen this far, and that shame nearly ate me alive. But the truth is, there are millions of Americans your age and my age going through exactly what I went through, and most of them are too proud or too scared to say it out loud. Here is what I know for certain after living through it. It is never as over as it feels at 2 in the morning. There are resources out there that nobody tells you about until you ask. Social Security, even at a reduced amount, is a foundation you can build on. Government assistance programs exist for people exactly like us, and using them is not failure. It is survival, and survival is smart. Downsizing is not giving up on your dreams. It is choosing peace over pressure. And part-time work at our age is not embarrassing. It is empowering. But most important of all, the thing I want to leave sitting in your heart when this video ends is this. A good life, at 62 or 65 or 70, does not require a big bank account. It requires the people you love, a reason to get up in the morning, and just enough peace to sleep at night. I had $800 and I found all 3. So can you? Well, friend, that is my story. Every honest word of it. And if it hits you somewhere deep, if you found yourself nodding along or maybe wiping your eyes a little, I want you to know that means something. It means you are human, and you are brave enough to face the truth about where you are and where you want to be. So here is what I am asking you to do right now. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button. It sounds simple, but it truly helps more people just like you find this video when they need it most. And if you are not subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because we tell real stories here for real people, and there is a whole lot more coming. But the thing I really want, more than any like or any subscriber count, is to hear from you down in the comments. Tell me your story. Tell me where you are right now in this retirement journey. Tell me what scares you or what you have already survived. Because I promise you somebody else is going to read your words and feel less alone because of them. And that right there is worth more than anything. You made it through this video, and I am glad you did. Now go hug somebody you love, pour yourself something warm, and remember what old Dale told you. It is never as over as it feels. Not even close. Scowl, Scowishmeth, Muckawench, ill.